Well, obviously.
What
not,
do we say?
but-
Moist January.
Moist January.
Slightly damp January. Yeah.
No, it's good. Periods of
Yeah.
reflection and abstinence like that are always clarifying.
Yeah, even if they're just like 4 or 5 days,
Right.
like
Hours.
a normal person.
Well, I don't even like. If you live in a very like wintry climate like Cleveland, I always thought New Year's resolutions were bizarre because like, all right, I resolved to change everything during the most dormant 3 to 5 months of the year.
Yeah.
Winter is a time for like hibernation. It's not a time for renewal as much.
So we need to switch
Well,
it
it's
to
not-
spring resolutions.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like maybe March. It's a little bit more inspiring when you take cues from nature, I think.
March forward in your life.
Yeah.
It sounds like something some brands could absolutely like take on to. Be like, you can't get out there and go jogging when it's -5 and 4 feet deep of snow unless you're like David Goggins or something. But
Or you're in Hawaii.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be jogging much.
Yes,
Today.
you will be very much.
And it'll be more than a slightly damp January.
When
thanks
this
for having me,
episode's
guys.
released, Chuck will be in Hawaii.
Right by the beach, boy.
So which island are you going to?
Going to Oahu.
Okay. Wonderful.
I know,
is that
like-
the largest one?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. Like this literally came about when we were recording the last podcast. United Airlines sent an email out, and I thought it was a mistake. Like I messaged my wife about it, and it was like that day only. Normally it's like 60,000 miles to get there, and they dropped it down to 12,000 and a $5 fee.
Nice.
It was like $5.50 was the fee. So yeah, we got it $22 for the two of us round trip, and
Gotta love the frequent flyer miles.
we just had to do it by midnight that night. Evan was actually looking at going
Oh yeah.
for the
yeah.
trip because I'm like, I got miles, man.
Oh yeah, too much to get right by leaving tomorrow. And seemed like jump on that opportunity, yeah. But
You only had 3 hours to decide too. On
Yeah,
top of that, like by the time we were
Yeah.
done with the
That's a quick
podcast, it was
decision.
Where are
9
you going?
o'clock at night.
where am I going to put my 5-year-old for 6 days? I don't know.
Suitcase, man.
Yeah, I was gonna joke carry on, but that's not a joke I necessarily wanted to make. But I did anyway.
I'll take it.
There we go.
Get one check bag, man.
There's a great record store in Honolulu called Aloha Got Soul
Okay.
that I've always wanted to travel to. They do a lot of reissues of 60s and 70s Hawaiian soul music.
Nice.
And they've got a cool record store there
Hawaiian
as
soul
well.
music.
Yeah, it's not something you typically think about, but I guess part of the benefit of the profound democratization of like just music that we're living through, both making and distribution, is a lot of these labels can go and unearth all the stuff that didn't get wider distribution and reissue it and find an audience for it.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's pleasant. So, when we're sitting in Cleveland in January,
Yeah.
in the middle of snow, or February in the middle of snow, or May in the middle of snow, you can turn on some Hawaiian soul and actually feel a little bit warmer inside.
I had planned on checking out
the
some
whiskey.
music stores there, like instrument stores, and like everything. All the pictures I saw of everything, it's all ukuleles in the window, like every
Beautiful.
single one. Because this past week I'd gone up to Chicago, checked out Chicago Music Exchange.
Oh, very cool.
Holy cow, man, that was amazing. It was, the whole first floor, they had a wall that it must have been like 30 feet wide, 20 feet tall, and it's just reissue Les Pauls.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Just reissue like R9s, the whole wall. I'll pop a picture up on here for
Oh
coming
yeah.
along
Give us a
with
couple highlights from that trip.
Yeah, please.
Well, Dennis Davis, our friend Dennis Davis, came and joined. That was fantastic. So once he was there, we decided to make it a bit of a music trip. And I got some good video of inside of Chicago Music Exchange too. And I was like, this might be a cool channel, is like, what are music stores like all over the place? Because I do a lot of traveling. So I'll be hitting some of these up. But you walk in there and everybody is super, super friendly. First, the entire city of Chicago, every person I met was so friendly.
Wow, really?
The homeless people would come up and be like super friendly. I just came out of being in New York City too, where there's a lot of aggressiveness among people of all walks of life. So I got here and everybody was like super helpful. So big shout out to Chicago. They were fantastic. But Chicago Music Exchange, yeah, you walk in, it's a wall of, just R9s that start at like, $5,500 or something like that. And everything is just touchable. there was like a 64 SG that was just sitting on the coffee table by the couches, and you just grab it and start playing. There's all kinds of rooms around for different amps and everything. You could play, just grab and play anything in the store, go into a room and try it out. The basement is all these crazy basses and synths. So we'd talked to, what was it, Marty, the saxophone player was from Chicago.
Yeah.
And I asked him about Chicago. Gearsick, yeah. I asked him about Chicago Music Exchange, and he's like, yeah, I have no idea. There's no horns there. It's guitars, bass, and synths. And then next door is Chicago Drum Exchange, which has some cool drum sets.
Nice.
But yeah, I played a 53 like Telecaster bass or precision bass that looks like a Telecaster. An Alembic bass that was, like $9,000.
Wow.
Just
Did you guys
grab
get plenty of
whatever.
video?
Yeah, we got a bunch of video in there and stuff. It's
Check
pretty.
out Chuck's channel YouTube video.
Yeah,
channel
I
for
gotta
that.
post it. I gotta post it still, but
Link it in the show notes.
yeah. We went to Tommy's Guitars too, which is also a Sloppy Joe sandwich shop and a guitar shop. That was pretty cool.
They know their audience, I guess.
Yeah. Saw a really cool SG there that was the special with the two P90 pickups and Pelham blue that had faded to green, except for like where the arm wear was and the back of the neck was still blue. That one's actually on my watch list upstairs. I might pick that up because he had it up pretty cheap.
And what do you have hanging on the wall over there? Which SG is that?
That is actually a Les Paul. That's a 1962 Les Paul before they changed the name to SG.
Okay.
So that comes up on a lot of podcasts. People ask about that one all the time.
Well,
Les Paul didn't like that.
Yeah, Les Paul didn't like the shape, so he got his name taken off the next
The
year.
double cutaway is so cool, though.
It is.
And I've never met like a red guitar or like a cherry guitar that I've liked.
Yeah. It's all broken in the right places, too, where it dropped it down to being attainable, and they got rid of the vibrola on it, switched out to a stop tail, killed the value, increased the tunability.
No Bixby tremolo on that.
Yeah.
No.
The thing stays in tune. It's rock solid, and I'm not terrified of it getting hurt.
And it's not as heavy as a Les Paul.
Oh, yeah. It's
That's
really,
the one I
really
jam
light.
the most when we're making music down here.
I can see why. I mean, everyone from Dwayne Allman to Tony Iommi to George Harrison has played SGs.
I want to swap in some humbucker size P90s in there and try some Tony Iommi stuff with it.
That's it. Anything that can go from heavy metal to jangle rock in one instrument is like that's range that I admire in an instrument. Because certainly Telecasters and Strats all have that type of versatility in them.
Yeah.
But
When we were at Chicago Music Exchange, like, I'm missing a Strat on the wall. Like, there's one gap right there, and that's where a Strat should be. So, like, I told myself, don't touch them, because I've already spent enough money in the last couple months. And I'm like, do I really need a Strat? Do I really need a Strat? So I haven't touched them. And then we went and saw Buddy Guy play. He has his own bar there called Legends, and he came out and played. And as soon as I heard the Strat go, I was like, oh, yeah, that's why I want a Strat.
that's why you need a Strat.
Because they sound like a Strat, and nothing else sounds close to that.
Yeah, if you're playing blues, I can't think of another guitar player
Yeah.
or another guitar that you would want over a Strat necessarily.
Yeah, like he was killing it. 86 years old, talking about like he didn't know about running water till he was 14. You know?
Yeah, I enjoyed those videos the most out of what you put up there. That's a good experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's only so many of these legends left. You know, got to go see them while you can.
100%.
Who's here today?
I don't know. Me? I feel like I'm stealing the show. We should just start here.
No, I want to talk about Chicago Music Exchange. I've shopped them online.
I have.
Like I've taken a look online, but I've never gone in. Mostly because of the temptation that you're describing.
Reverb is directly across the street. Like literally directly across the street. So I asked them when I was leaving. I'm like, "Is there an actual
they have a
Reverb
store?
Well, that's what it's just their headquarters.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
just-
is that an actual shop over there? Because I know Reverb like sells a lot of things. Like if you ship something out as a seller and it's damaged and you have their protection, they take it back and they take care of everything and they resell
wow.
stuff. Yeah, heard from Chuck Kaminsky some great things about like using the buyer protection from Reverb is fantastic. They're like, you sent it, we have proof you sent it, you don't have to worry about a thing from here. Yeah. So, but they resell the stuff. So I was hoping they had a showroom over there of like the scratch and dents, you know, after drooling over the $6,000 to $10,000 stuff and beyond.
We should find out where that warehouse is, though.
Yeah.
And we should keep plugging Reverb so you guys get the
That'd be
sponsorship.
fantastic.
They definitely have a lot of my money. Not more than Sweetwater, but
Yeah,
definitely
Sweetwater's
some.
got the most.
I think we've
100%.
talked about Reverb every episode.
Yeah,
At least
Reverb.
every episode.
And Sweetwater we talk about most episodes too. All my drum videos that I do on my drumming channel, I'm always in a Sweetwater shirt. Always. Like, come on, see me.
Be about it.
See me. I need a cymbal or two. I don't need much.
We've got Teddy Eisenberg here. Welcome to Cuyahoga Sound Podcast. I must
Thank you very
messed
much.
up the name.
It's okay. Grateful to be here. Thank you
Great
for
band name.
having me. What, Cuyahoga Sound Podcast?
Just Cuyahoga Sound.
Cuyahoga Sound.
Yeah, you might.
I feel like you guys have first dibs on
You might
that.
see some music released under the name Cuyahoga Sound in the coming months.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We already got the website, I mean.
Yeah. It'll be me, Chuck, and Chuck's brother from Among the Willows, Eric.
Fantastic. Yeah, I saw you were in studio at Lava Room recently.
Yeah, that's with the Rust Belt Ragtops.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
cool.
East Side folk rock, bluegrass, funk mix.
Nice. Is that the new Lava Room? Because
the
they
new
moved in
Lava
the
Room,
old
yeah.
commercial recording. Cool. How successfully have they repurposed that space? Did they keep it relatively the same?
We'll see. I think we're one of the first.
Okay.
Yeah, but it looks just as pro as the last place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's a super cool building. Not a lot of spaces in Cleveland have been purpose built to be studios like that space.
This place, I think he's sharing it with a social media marketing guy, or is like part owner at that building, and so they're going to be partnering up to do more down that avenue, and where we get to be a guinea pig with some of the stuff they're trying to do. So
Awesome.
I'm excited for that.
That's going to be super cool. I mean, that's an instrumental, unfortunately, part of all of what being an artist means today.
Yeah, we're 5 white guys in our 30s. We have no idea what to do there.
Have you started your TikToks yet?
We haven't started them. I think we have our account though. Yeah.
Is this podcast on TikTok?
We are not
Do you post
yet.
clips?
No,
No.
we've done some stuff on Instagram. We mostly forget to take pictures with our guests. That's our best social media thing is
Well, this is the reminder.
Yeah.
Let's not forget to take pictures.
we say that every
Okay.
episode.
Yeah. I think we forgot the last six guests.
Forgetting for the guests is sponsored by Cleveland Whiskey.
That's the segment.
Cool. Well, Teddy Eisenberg, what is your role in the music scene here?
Probably being an obsessive more than anything else. That's probably how I describe my involvement. It's led to a lot of different stuff over the past decade. I mean, I probably am best known for my Thursday morning radio show on Case's college radio station, WRUW.
That's where I first met you, I think. Or I probably met you at a show. That was our first thing we did together.
Yeah, a lot of my first meetings are in interviews like this. So this is a turning of the tables that actually has never happened. I'm typically the interviewer, not the interviewee, which I enjoy this perspective. It's very cool. But I mean, I've done everything from being involved in the management of that station, booking shows there, having a radio show, to managing artists, to managing recording studios, to writing about music.
What's the numbers to check out that station?
So it's
91.
91.1 FM or WRUW.org. Yeah. We just recently celebrated our 50th anniversary pre-pandemic, so it's not as recent as my mind is telling me it is.
It's still 2020 right now.
Yeah, basically. I think
It's the extended director's cut.
1967 is when RUW started broadcasting out of that basement in Mather Memorial on Case's campus. So, yeah, it's almost 55 years at this point, 56 years.
Yeah.
It'll be 56 years in February.
That reminds me of a 1967 tribute to the music of 1967 show that we did at the Beachland 5 years ago. Yeah. And
What'd you guys play?
we played. We got to play some of our original music that was inspired by that era, but then we played Red House by Jimi Hendrix.
A classic.
Liz Bullock came on and sang Respect by Aretha Franklin with us.
Beautiful.
And let me think. Brown Eyed Girl, just because we had to do something popular. And
Red
Those
House
other
isn't
two
popular.
weren't.
that was something. Oh, man. It's on the tip of my tongue.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
It's from the Doors. They put
No,
out
yeah,
67.
we did
Yeah, that debut
Break
was
On Through the
67.
Other Side, and
One of
but
the
that
greatest
wasn't
rock
the
songs of all time.
one. Yeah. It was Buffalo Springfield, for what it's worth.
Oh,
Excellent.
nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
One of the better Steve Stills projects.
Yeah, definitely. We we did, let's see, Ray Flanagan's band and Jason Myers, Tim Moon, and I think that was it. That was the day after Chris Cornell died, and so we got together with Tim and Jason and did "I Am the Highway" by Audio Slave.
Oh wow!
To send him off. That was a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like people didn't really respect the Rage Against the Machine rhythm section until Audio Slave. They really got to showcase their versatility in that group.
Yeah, to showcase that, yeah. But they were the tightest, and that was one of my
I've
one of my
appreciated
first.
them the whole time.
Yeah, the same.
Oh yeah, no, me too.
Cheers to that. Yeah. Cool.
You're talking about 67. There's a cool YouTube channel that's Yesterday's Papers. I don't know if I ever told you about that.
Yeah.
But they go back and look at album reviews from each month in 1967 from British, British
British
newspapers.
publications.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of these like psychedelic things. They're like, this thing went nowhere, but if you find a 45 of it, it's worth, it's like gold right now. But some really cool songs and things that just never took off. But all these artists also that were starting in 67 in London.
Yeah.
That went on to, start the Police and, Peter Frampton starting his first thing when he was just a young kid. And like,
How cool.
it's pretty cool. Every month they come out with a new episode that's the corresponding month. So we'll see if they're doing 1968, but last year it was all 1967.
That's
month by
awesome.
month. It's definitely worth checking out.
And that's a great year for debuts that we've already touched on. I mean, that's Are You Experience, that's The Doors.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the first Buffalo Springfield record. I don't know. Most of my knowledge about that whole Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young cohort came from reading Graham Nash's autobiography a couple years ago. And he was, other than Crosby, the one I had the least respect for, so I wanted that vantage point. Because, it's easy to respect and love Neil Young. I mean, he was the father of grunge and countless other classic recordings.
One note solos.
Right, I was going to say, no one has done more with one note in terms of guitar solos than Neil Young. And, I mean, Steve Stills, if he had just done Buffalo Springfield, he'd be essential. But I love a lot of those records he did with Manassas. I love a lot of his solo work, too. He could always play guitar.
Yeah.
He was always a hell of a guitar player. And there's that great, I think this is also 67. There's a record that Al Cooper, Mike Bloomfield from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Steve Stills did. It's kind of a split. Al Cooper plays guitar on one side. Steve Stills plays guitar on the other. And then I think Mike Bloomfield does all the horn arrangements. It's an absolutely killer record.
Huh.
I think there's like a 13-minute version of Steve Stills doing Donovan's Season of the Witch. That's always the one that sticks out. It's just like, that's the record where I really gained an appreciation for him as a guitar player, because they just let him go in a way that you never really get to hear him in any release after that. But it's killer.
That's a good one to do a long version of. We do that with Rust Belt Ragtops.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, we do. And
It's such a good song.
yeah, we have a lot of jam elements in our group, so
You've always been on the
we
jammy
fill
end of
that.
things. That's awesome. I love it. I can't wait to hear that. Is that part of what you're tracking?
No, it's not. That's just
That's
part of
a
that's our
live.
live show. Yeah,
Okay,
come
cool.
see us at one of our longer shows, or Halloween shows. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
You dressed like a witch for that one?
I don't know.
It's a shame.
We're giving you free ideas here.
Yeah. I mean, I charge him, but
I could. Last Halloween, I dressed like Vincent from Pulp Fiction.
Nice.
My girlfriend dressed like Mia, and it was like that 50s
Oh, that classic scene.
shop when they're doing the dancing. Yeah, I had the bolo tie and everything. That was fun.
yeah, you guys nailed it, man.
Beautiful. Doing your best John Travolta.
I tried. Yeah, I don't have a very good inner John Travolta. Yeah. But it wasn't my idea. But I love the costume.
I mean, it's a great costume. Bolo tie is probably the hardest thing to obtain at this point.
What is?
The bolo tie?
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
came with the wig.
There we go.
Well, tell us more about the radio station and the program you put on.
So I, for the past couple of years, have hosted a program called the Eisenberg Review, where I think I got to the end of 2018, and typically a lot of radio programmers there do a like year retrospective, best things that you found. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, that year I got to the end of the year, and I'm like, man, I really didn't listen to a lot of stuff from this year. And a light bulb went off in my head, like never again. So since 2019, I've tried to keep a pace of listening to 10 records that are new to me a week.
A week. Wow.
A week. Every year except this past year, I've done it for the past for the past 4 years or so, and that desire to listen to a lot of new stuff and then share it with people is what kind of manifested in this radio show. So every Thursday
So you listen
between
to
8 and 10.
300 albums this year?
Yeah, the 332 albums and 79 EPs.
Wow.
Yeah, I keep track as kind of a mindfulness exercise.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's just kind of, I want people to hear a lot of stuff and people to appreciate a lot of stuff. And it kind of, part of it is not wanting to necessarily fall prey to a lot of the pretentious listening that we find ourselves doing. Not checking stuff out because we already kind of have preconceived notions about what an artist stands for or what their music sounds like. If I don't like something, I want to at least understand why I don't like it and not turn my nose up at it because, Miley Cyrus put it out or Dua Lipa put it out. Because I was spinning that Dua Lipa record a couple of years ago on college radio and getting some blowback, and I'm like, you show me a better pop record this year, I'll play that. So the philosophy of that program is the more you listen to, the more you can appreciate. I want people to be sophisticated in their taste, not necessarily pretentious about it.
That makes sense. Evan and I were talking the other day. We're like we listen to pop music, and
Yeah.
we either, I don't think we at least for me, I don't like.
Right, what makes it good?
Yeah, I don't know what's like. I know what I like, but I have no idea what those ingredients are. Like, I don't know what it is that's putting it there that makes it stick in my head, that makes it really stand out. Like a lot of other things, I'm like, oh, I really like this guitar turnaround that happened right here. But with pop music,
Yeah.
I have no idea what the heck it is. But maybe going and listening to some deeper dives will help that out.
Yeah, or even just because a lot of the core building blocks of what make pop music appealing are in arrangement, melody, some of the ear candy that's thrown in. There's a lot to appreciate there. It's just a genre that, there's a lot of follow the leader that happens. So if it doesn't sound like an already established popular sound, because the primary means for a lot of pop music is commercial, you are, chasing what you think an audience wants to hear as opposed to innovating. But it's the truly great innovative stuff like that Dua Lipa record, like Charlie XCX, like Shayla Hooper you're going to be interviewing after me on a subsequent episode. There are artists that are really doing a lot in terms of innovating and pushing that sound forward, referencing other things. Because all music's retro at this point. Every musician makes music informed by the stuff they grew up loving. That's how music progresses. And a lot of that happens in pop music.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that Dua Lipa record's great because it's basically everything that everyone's learned from Quincy Jones. It's like, oh, okay, let's do that in 2022. Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I still got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'm gratified to know that, I can't possibly listen to everything that's ever been put out. There are more tracks uploaded to streaming services in a day than you could probably listen to in a year. I mean, I think the last count that I saw from reports is 100,000 songs get uploaded.
Per day.
So, per day. So knowing that there's that much music out there being created is actually really exciting.
Yeah.
Because I think the world's a better place if a lot of people are creating stuff that they love. But that then also puts some onus on the listener, the consumer, whatever you want to call them, to define a taste and then find things that adhere to that taste and boost it. Because no, go ahead.
Do you have any advice on how to get to a frame of mind where to open yourself up to listening to new stuff? Because most people, and myself, I'll put on what I like while I'm driving. It
Totally.
takes hosting this podcast has been my biggest motivation for listening to new stuff from the guests and from people all around Cleveland.
Sure.
So, you have any advice for people trying to figure out a way to expand their musical horizons?
Other than just kind of keeping an open mind, I'm trying to think. Because for me, it just comes from an open curiosity of every record I put on is an opportunity to find my next favorite record, my next favorite potential sound that I didn't know was out there. So I kind of naturally have that hunger. And you will lead a more fulfilled and probably happier life if you're open to more new experiences in music or whatever your hobby is. You'll lead a more enriched life the more you listen to. And the more you listen to, the more you can appreciate. So I think for me, I carve out time every morning. Part of my morning routine is putting on something new, at least, and listening to stuff for an hour.
Cool.
but that's much more.
How do you find it or pick it?
So a lot of it is finding labels that I like, kind of like, not exclusively Aloha Got Soul, but a label like that.
Yeah.
Finding labels that I like and trust the sound of, or still going back to publications or other types of music curators that I know what their taste is and then trust based on that taste. It's funny, that democratization we were talking about, now that everyone can release everything, we have moved past the need for the gatekeepers of prior eras of
So
music.
you mean when new to you, not so one of your new albums might be from the 50s.
Yeah, like I listened to a Parliament Funkadelic record for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I count that.
Good
it was
pick.
past their classic era. I think it was like the Motor Booty Affair or something like that. But like I hadn't listened to it because it wasn't Maggot Brain. It wasn't necessarily one of the more classic recordings. I'm listening almost for context at this point to be able to understand stuff, because I think that's part of it. Like everything exists in a context, a frame of mind, and that is part of what helps you appreciate stuff.
Nice.
I think.
Do you have a flow that goes through the day? Like, do you start with a certain genre in the morning? Because I imagine, death metal is not a good 7 a.m. wake up. Well, I mean,
Says
you'll be
you.
awake.
Depends. It's death metal or coffee. What's the pick there? I don't do a lot
That sounds
of
like a good album
death
name.
metal. Death metal or
Death
coffee.
metal or coffee? That does sound all right.
Or a book.
That's a natural brand partnership there. I mean, because there's Death Wish coffee.
Yeah.
Supposedly the most caffeinated coffee.
Oh, so sorry, I
Which is
interrupted
whatever.
your routine answer.
No, I don't even know. I mean, not really. It's kind of just whatever I'm feeling or whatever's floated to the top of the album list.
And do you have it planned like the day before? You know what you're going into, or is it fresh?
No.
It's fresh.
It's just fresh. It's just kind of a spur of the moment thing. Like I'm even trying to think of what I listened to this morning, and I don't remember, which is probably a bad sign.
That's
the
the other
new
part I was gonna get to.
no.
The
So
hard
the
part,
new
listen to that much.
Motet record. So Colin Miller, who if you
Motet.
haven't had him on your show, terrific soul singer, songwriter in town, he
I've been
posted
trying
something.
like hell to get him, but he's busy.
You'll get him. He's incredibly busy. But he posted an Instagram story about that record, and he's a guy that I've consistently liked his output. I've
They
had
went and
enough.
did a few dates on their last tour with him, didn't they?
He did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love
So-
the Motet just from like experience in the jam scene. They're on all those festivals or were in the mid to late 2010s.
Killer.
Good,
And see,
good guys, real funky.
Yeah.
And it's a great record, and it references a lot of that old school funk jam stuff with some of the newer '80s. Like I don't know, I got shades of like Herbie Hancock's Rocket and stuff like that.
yeah.
You get some TR-909 and other stuff in there, but that was the record this morning. Just kind of spur of the moment. He posted it, and I'm like, okay, I trust Colin. I'll listen to this.
Yeah. Check out that show if you've never had a chance, all listeners. The Motet, if they ever come, even as close as Detroit, drive out. It's worth it.
You recently
I bet.
did a binge of Van Halen after our last talks with
Yeah,
Ray
I-
Flanagan. How'd that
yeah, I
go?
did.
Ooh, okay. And this is like I aspire to bring Ray Flanagan energy to this podcast. As in so much in life, I'm just aspiring to be Ray Flanagan.
You can
when I
try
grow up.
all you want.
Oh, I'm not going to try to equal it, but
He's the thrust master.
so what was the Van Halen discussion? And are we talking Van Halen or Van Hagar, or where do you stand on that debate?
I didn't get to the Hagar stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, when I talked to you, I got kind of distracted, and
You were on VH2 when I talked to you.
I was
It's
I
a killer record.
Got a little into the. I listened to the whole next one, like women and
Women
children.
and Children first.
Yeah, and then I got a little into the fourth one, I think, and then got distracted or something.
What is the
But
fourth one? Dive or Down?
I don't
I think
remember.
it's
Is it Mean Street, or-
yeah. I think Mean
the one
Street.
with
I
Mean
can't think.
Street's
Yeah,
on
Mean
it.
Street's the opening track. Did you hear Mean Street? It just
Yeah, I heard that one.
That is some of the
Fair Warning.
darkest guitar. Fair Warning is what it is.
I love that
Some of
album.
the darkest guitar playing Van Halen ever did. He was
Yeah.
going through a particularly tumultuous time in his life, and it really comes out in the playing there.
Yeah.
Really
you guys
does.
were talking about it so connected that I felt like I was missing out so much. And then I was gonna do Pantera after that. Yeah.
That's a morning band.
That is definitely.
alone.
Or if you need to just start walking, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying
To
to.
inspire you to walk.
Yeah, that's more
definitely.
like
Respect.
that feels like more like of a march than a walk. That song.
Yeah. What tuning
Well, what
is
is
that
a
in?
march,
That's
so-
a heavy. That's a heavy ass guitar riff. I
think
mean,
it
all
might
of
just
those
be
are.
drop D. I think.
It's all that compression though.
Yeah, an old Randall solid state amp, and cranked way up.
Good to know it's not a PV or a Line 6, because I definitely feel like anytime I walk into, I don't know if this is the issue at Chicago Music Exchange, but anytime you walk into a Sam Ash or a Guitar Center, it's like, how long can I go before I hear Crazy Train or Eruption? That's the bet.
Yeah.
Right? Not besmirching the fine reputation of either of those songs, but like,
Yeah.
I've heard enough people try to do that in a Guitar Center to show off where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah, this was
They don't
just
know the rules.
this was just people mopping the floor, getting all the drool off as you go past all these different displays of crazy awesome gear.
One of my riffs is outshined by Soundgarden when I'm trying out a guitar.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that. What else? I got Funk 49 by James Gang. I use
classic.
that. I use Good Love Is on the Way from John Mayer Trio.
Yeah.
Beautiful tune.
That'd be a good question to start asking guests. Is like, what's your go-to riff or whatever
Or
when you're
there's some of my
when you
sound
sit
check
at an
riffs,
instrument?
too.
Yeah. So
We've got some of yours. What are
I'm
yours?
for drumming. I come up and the intro to the Rover from Zeppelin is the
Oh.
first thing that when I sit down at a
Physical
drum set.
Graffiti is my favorite Zeppelin
Oh, that's
record.
fantastic. That's my traveling
money.
album. Like I love like just getting on a train and listening to that. Like it just feels like a band that's like, all right, we're the best now. We're taking over the world.
Absolutely. No, and In My Time of Dying is probably my favorite Zeppelin tune.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a visceral, raw power to that performance where it's like, holy hell.
Yeah.
No one else is doing what that. I mean, everyone's tried to do that since they did it.
Right. Yeah. I
Okay.
love that drum sound through that whole thing though. But yeah, the Rover just has that opening. And as soon as I do like get through that, I'm like, all right, like my body knows where everything that I really need is on this kit.
Yeah.
I'm good to go.
You're good to go. That's a beautiful, orienting song. Yeah, I dig that.
You ever think like bands that do something that much of a landmark later in their career that they would have never had the opportunity, like unless it was the beginning of their career set the stage for them to give them the opportunity to branch out like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So whoever brought Zeppelin into whoever signed them, managed them, whatever early,
Peter Grant.
they
And Press
we
hated
would
them
we would have
initially.
never had the Rain song, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was part
was
of
House of the
George
Holies,
Harrison.
Yeah,
was,
that's House of the Holy.
George Harrison was kind of responsible for the Rain song. He's like, yeah, you guys are good and all, but have you tried writing a good ballad? Page is like, yeah, I'll do that.
I'll try.
Yeah.
I mean,
And they
there
wrote the
are
Rain
good
song.
ballads before Houses of the Holy. I mean, isn't Stairway to Heaven a ballad?
Yeah, it
Since-
it goes rocking out, but it was like a direct thing from George Harrison going, yeah, write a couple
Since I've
ballads
Been
and
Loving You
then
on
tell me
3.
how you are.
That's exactly the song I was going to bring
That's
up.
the best.
That is.
Live
I mean-
recording of that's my absolute favorite from the song remains the same.
Because the song remains the same. Hot Take is not a great live record.
Yeah,
I don't think.
It's got too many cuts in there too. There's a whole website dedicated to all the cuts. Like, so my favorite Zeppelin is
really?
"Since I've Been Loving You" from the song remains the same. It's missing a beat in the middle of the second verse. So if you try it, like I tried to drum along, I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong?
There
here?
is a long history of rock bands editing live albums. I mean, Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest is perhaps the most notorious, right? It's not really a live record. They just piped in, some live sound on those mixes to make
Yeah.
it sound like it.
Kiss has been accused of plenty of that too with their stuff, with the Alive and Alive 2.
You don't really. I don't know if this is going to be in trouble, but like you don't go to see Kiss exclusively for the music. They're
Yeah,
putting
it's
on
a show. Yeah.
You are not going to be blown away by musicianship when you see Kiss, even though they have a ton of killer material. And Alive is one of the better live records for rock music, period. I mean, it's up there with Live at Leeds, probably, in terms of best live records.
Yeah, Frampton Comes Alive.
Frampton Comes Alive is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer that to any of his studio recordings.
Yeah.
Because he gets to explore and venture out on that record a little bit more.
There's a lot of bands like that though, where the live just kills the studio stuff, and then there's the opposite where you hear the live stuff. Van Halen, for instance, you hear live with like David Lee Roth, which I've seen before, and you're like, all right, when's Eddie's solo coming up?
Although I don't know. So I got to see them on that reunion tour that they did in 2006.
Buffalo?
Oh, nice.
With David Lee Roth.
I went up to Buffalo for that.
Did
one.
you?
Yeah.
I think they played the Wolstein Center.
They
and
came
it
here
was
the
great.
second leg of the tour. The first
Is that what it
leg
was?
got announced, and I was like, I'm going to Buffalo. So we drove to Buffalo and went and checked it out. But yeah.
I thought they sounded great.
Yeah.
And it was up to that point in my life, the only necessary drum solo I'd ever seen. Because you got to let Alex cook.
Yeah. You have.
He's one of the drummers that's actually worth, yeah, I would pay money just to see him drum. And I did.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. And Wolfie did a pretty good job on bass.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of his own stuff going, man.
I haven't listened to any of that stuff. Is it any good?
Put it on your list.
I definitely will. I will. Is it a similar vein?
It's more modern, but yeah, like he's good. He's good. It just he's living under this giant shadow, you know.
That's always, I got to imagine, the tough thing for the sons and daughters of those guys.
Yeah,
Because
Jason,
even
Jason Bonham. Yeah,
right?
he's
Totally.
a great drummer, but
He is in his own right.
yeah, his dad is John.
Right.
You know.
Perhaps one of the most idolized drummers of all time.
Yeah. Well, Sean Lennon's doing a great thing. Like
Totally.
Lennon Claypool or Claypool Lennon Delirium.
Yeah.
Claypool Lennon.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
He's had some cool
It's
solo stuff too.
Another
Yeah.
don't miss show. Yeah.
So they're doing all right.
Everyone's doing all right.
Everyone's doing all right.
Yeah.
That's what we
A
learned
lot
today.
less
We hope so.
pressure post-COVID.
That is true.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're here with Teddy Eisenberg. Before we get deeper into Van Halen, and I'm more just a spectator.
I'm here for the Van Halen conversation. I absolutely am.
I'm here to listen to you two talk. You both got great radio voices.
We do.
All right,
It's a beautiful thing.
You do some artist management as well.
I do.
Let's touch on that. We've talked to Andy Russo, who does some artist management. That's I got him over here, man. Well, Brew Kettle, right? Yeah, the
Yep,
Brew Kettle,
Brew
White
Kettle.
Raja, unofficial sponsor.
Yeah.
Everyone's an unofficial sponsor until they're an official sponsor.
We've had a couple official sponsors.
Yeah, well,
Collision Bend. has
Collision Bend
sponsored us.
Brewery
Sick.
and Basement Trader.
Nice.
Basement Trader's fantastic.
Yeah.
Going to be in for the next podcast, too.
Yeah, a few weeks from now.
weeks from now.
Mr. Chuck Kaminsky
Mr. Chuck
himself.
Kaminsky's going to make the trip.
Fantastic.
It's going to be a riot.
Well, we can touch on sponsors later.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
Or
Sorry.
all these
It's,
business
I'm
cards.
here.
just-
I'm here to help
I just needed a beer.
secure the sponsorships.
What did I just ask you?
You asked me about artist management.
Aha, yes.
And I'm fortunate enough to manage two great Northeast Ohio acts, pop artist Shayla Hope, you'll be talking to momentarily, and the Sublets, and you've had George Chase on your program previously. So it's something that I just kind of came to naturally. It's work that I really, really enjoy. A lot of it is personality management and making sure the trains run on time, but I'm good at that stuff. And it's very, very fulfilling to help artists kind of achieve their creative vision. I really strongly believe that the world would be a better place if more people were chasing their creative passion and putting great art out into the world. And to be a small part of that is a very, very gratifying experience.
Great. Cool. We need a little bit of information of what goes into that kind of job. When you
What doesn't go
take
into that
when
kind
you
of
take
job?
on an artist when you take on an artist, you like I would guess you find out their personal goals and like what they wish to accomplish with the music, the kind of image they want to portray, and you just help them stay on task and help them get opportunities, help them with shows, with getting music out.
All of the
What am I
above.
missing?
No, I mean, it's all of the above. My management style is very much reflective of the idea that the artist is the CEO. It's their career. I heard a Stevie Wonder, or no, it wasn't Stevie Wonder, it was Smokey Robinson interview years ago where he was talking about managing Diane Warwick and trying to steer her in directions that he thought would be beneficial, and she didn't want to do it. It's to the point where he ultimately said, all right, it's your career. And that kind of stuck with me because there are certain managers that definitely approach it with the style of like, this is how you do it. These are the hoops you need to jump through. These are the things you need to do. But if that's not what the artist ultimately wants to accomplish, what good is that for the artist necessarily? Like it's ultimately, you are trying to help them get where they want to go, whether or not it's selling out arenas and stadiums or whether or not it's putting out art that they find gratifying that then touches other people. So the artists are the CEO and I'm the COO. I help them find creatives that mesh with their vision. I help make sure people are on time, get paid, stuff is moving forward in an orderly fashion. But I'm not involved in the day-to-day decisions of like, this is what production should sound like. This is what, the art should be. I'm more of just helping make sure that art happens and then finds an audience after the fact, corresponding to what the artist's vision is. Because not everyone's trying to be Harry Styles or Lady Gaga or Greta Van Fleet or Led Zeppelin, for that matter. Everyone's trying to achieve something different.
Cool. And so do you give direction or guide? Like, are you like a welcome to backseat driver, or are
Sometimes.
you the driver's seat?
No, I'm definitely can I be a co-pilot?
Co-pilot.
In those instances,
Yeah.
I can sit passenger.
That's
so I'm
actually
sitting
the
shotgun.
term I was looking for after that.
Like the navigation system, and you take a different road, and they're like, all right, we're going to go this route now.
Well, it's
I
not
see
even
that's what you wanna
necessarily
do.
We
that.
can
It's
still
like
get you there.
Yeah.
after
still get you there.
whatever route you take, I'm there to help with navigation.
Yeah.
After that fact,
All right.
it's not necessarily like, all right, take the right fork in the road. It's now that we've taken that fork in the road, what opportunities does that present necessarily? Because it's making it as an artist is in some ways a lot easier than it's ever been, because it's easier to reach people with your music. It's easier to make music, but it's also harder to reach people and harder to make a sustainable career in a way that there really isn't a template anymore. It used to be that you recorded a record with a big producer, you got on Saturday Night Live, you opened for people on tour, and like you got radio promotion, and there were hoops that you jumped through that helped establish you as a major artist. Now there are 45 different things that you could do at any different time to get some level of exposure or success, and then keeping it's harder than ever. So the idea is less, hey, I want to have a smash #1 hit because that may be fleeting. It's more of how do I build a sustainable career from a number of different things that I may find fulfilling that help me reach an audience base that will help, sustain my career.
So a group starting out, does the reach come initially from, where does that reach come from initially? What's the best way if you're just starting out as an artist or a group to start to get the reach out? Is it playing out? Is it to being on these social media things? Is it to working on that album and having something to promote around?
Yes.
Well, yes.
It's all of those things. I think you both need to play in settings and in front of audiences that you think are going to be receptive while doing a decent amount of digital marketing to expose yourself on platforms. I mean, fundamentally, you need to be where people are. You need to be where music fans are. And that's not necessarily just at concert venues. That's on social media apps. That's in coffee shops. That's in bars. It's anywhere where music meaningfully adds to the fabric of someone's life. You ultimately want to be so that you can touch people in the way that music touches all of us. You are soundtracking people's lives. You are providing a profound service. I mean, music is what gives life direction and meaning in a lot of instances. It's a balm that we reach for when we're sad. It's something that we reach for to soundtrack our best times and our worst times. So I know that's kind of an unsatisfying answer. You need to be everywhere, but you need to go where the party is. Right. And there really is no quick fix at this stage or at any other stage. I mean, even talking about some of the prior eras past in classic rock that we've heard, like there were 100 bands that sounded like Jefferson Airplane that weren't Jefferson Airplane, right? Mm-hmm. There were tons of bands that sounded like Van Halen that didn't make it to the heights that they were. I mean, you had some acts like Extreme that kind of did, but it's easier to reach an audience now than it ever has been.
They just joined Van Halen.
Right. Is that a thing that actually happened?
VH3, right? It was Gary Sharon jumped in and sang vocals. He replaced Sammy Hagar.
Oh, did he?
There was a third singer?
I had no idea.
Van Halen 3 was the album. It did not go over well.
I'm completely ignorant of that record completely.
I did notice that Van Halen 3 was like later in their career when I was looking at all the albums.
Yeah, you know. it's
that little
it's
guy.
a thing.
Don't worry about that little guy.
But Van Halen, Different Kind of Truth that came out like 2007.
Yeah, that's the David Lee Roth reunion record.
Yeah, and
it's actually a killer record.
It's all stuff that they had already written by the time Van Halen 2 had come out. They just never released. So like they changed some of the lyrics. It talks about your MySpace page a little bit.
But that's great to know because that's why it sounds so cohesive. Because I like and appreciate Sammy Hagar for what he does. not necessarily as big of a fan of him with that ensemble.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably more of a fan of his solo stuff and the Chickenfoot stuff that he did with Chad Smith and Joe Satriani. And is Michael Anthony in that band? I think Michael Anthony played bass in that band. I don't know, his vocal and his approach didn't really match the kind of visceral, raw energy of that band initially. And I kind of feel the same way about Dio and Black Sabbath, too. So
Yeah, it changed it to a different type of party. Like,
Right.
the Van Halen party was like, all right, we're going to go get fucked up.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
Van
it's a lot
Hagar
rowdier.
party was like, hey, everybody, wear your Hawaiian shirts. We're all getting together for a barbecue.
and none of us can drive 55.
That's right.
But then you hear his Van Halen experience influence the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Pound Cake's a great song. No, I like that song.
Oh, yeah, there's good stuff.
Alex is just killer.
What's that? It's 5-1.
5150?
5150. That's what it is. I was going to botch it and fuse it with that 80s Yes record. So
Yeah.
thank you for saving me there. Which is also good. Yes weathered the 80s in a way better than most acts, I feel like.
They did.
I mean, that record's better than anything Asia put out. Flinging the hot takes.
not-
Sorry.
For me in 80s, I missed most of it.
Lucky you.
There is, and this is actually, I'd be curious to know where you guys stand on this debate. There's always, I'll see like every month someone pop up like, what's the best decade for music on Facebook? And my answer is perennially like, this decade. I think the best music ever being made is being made now. It's sometimes just harder to find. Because the technology and the access to everything that's happened before us is greater than it's ever been. So you can find and be influenced by more great stuff than at any point in human history.
That's right. Yeah, you said that like there was when Neil Young or whoever was popular, there was also 500 other Neil Youngs that did
Right.
like making the same stuff, like maybe even different, like more innovative too, and never got the chance to be heard.
Right?
Now, all 500 Neil Youngs get to be heard.
Absolutely.
Just
and
not
just
on
by a smaller
Spotify.
audience.
Well, yes,
No,
yes,
not on Spotify.
yes,
on
on
Spotify.
Until they get rid of Joe Rogan, which they
That's
never will do. But it's fine. I mean, something tells me that Neil Young was never perfectly happy being on Spotify because of the way they compress everything. He's a Tidal guy or a Q-Buzz guy or whatever that French streaming service is,
Yeah,
which I've never dug into.
That's another question of mine
Yeah.
for you is different streaming services that like might not be as mainstream. No pun intended. When you are looking for this new music, like how deep do you go? Are there other streaming services that we might not know? Really, only listen with Apple Music, Pandora, Spotify, like Deezer is another one, and like
Yeah, and Deezer doesn't even get used that much in the U.S. It's much more European in terms of its appeal. I mean, not really. I mean, I'll be honest. Because of my work, I maintain subscriptions to Amazon Music, Apple Music, Tidal, and Spotify. Because got to update artist profiles in every single one and kind of be aware of what the data is and what the playlist dynamics are in the specific platform. But I use Spotify most. I was an early adopter. I think when it came out in 2011, I downloaded it and kind of used it ever since to work my way through material. If I really want to listen deeply or listen to something that's going to be higher fidelity, that's what Tidal's for. And they do some weird stuff with the frequency and EQing on the master quality audio, but it's still better because it's not compressed. But outside of that, I think we're probably moving in a direction of, because these DSPs, these delivery service partners is what they're termed in the industry, are so saturated, we probably in the next 10 years are going to see labels try to exercise more control over the ubiquitous streaming platforms like a Pandora or a Spotify or an Apple Music. And platforms like SoundCloud or Bandcamp are going to become much more, to the extent that they aren't already, servicing a lot of DIY artists. Because Bandcamp is still, even after the Epic Games purchase, which hasn't really affected how they do business, at least not yet, still provides a lot
different
of
ownership or like
different ownership.
A recent change.
Yeah, Epic purchased them, who are a video game company primarily. I think they're known for developing. I mean, I know Blizzard is World of Warcraft, but I think they're all part of the same ecosystem. But I'll be interested to see how that changes their service model. It hasn't.
You spend time on
until now.
SoundCloud. That seems like more underground. Like what you said.
I spend
DIY.
some time on SoundCloud. It provides a larger platform. Like you know what you're going for on SoundCloud a little bit more. But as far as it being a mainstream driver of sounds in pop and rap, it doesn't wield quite the same influence that it did when it launched over 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's acceptedly more raw.
Yeah,
Too, right?
absolutely. Yeah, you find a lot more experimental stuff. But I'm not necessarily surfing around on SoundCloud the same way. I mean, honestly, I've been an avid subscriber and reader of allmusic.com for a long time. I grew up reading those reviews and loving those reviews, and that kind of forming a lot of my listening taste. They send out
what, online music magazine?
Yeah, it basically is a repository for almost every major release that comes out. They rate it. They write a very succinct but well-informed review of whatever the material is to place it in historical context, provide some opinion, but it's a really helpful resource.
Cool. They're pretty central without like a lot of favor to a certain genre or label or.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's jazz, classical, hip-hop, rock, funk, like you name it. If it's put out by a label of some repute, they pretty much have it up there.
Allmusic.com.
Allmusic.com. Yeah.
Cool.
Another potential sponsor. There we go.
Right.
Here we are.
Do,
Because that
do
is-
they have the sublets and New Shiloh Hope record on there?
They do not yet. They're still trying to work on how to get that access up there. But no, their reviews have always influenced me greatly because they very much try to contextualize everything, which is, I think, what, as you're listening and trying to make sense of something that you might not necessarily understand, like The Weeknd drops a new record. I've been listening to The Weeknd since that trio of mixtapes that he released in the early 2010s. Like, I have a relationship that I've invested in. I have listened to his music. I feel like I at least have come to some understanding of him as an artist. I'm not going to rush to a review to contextualize that because I have all of the past work to contextualize it for me. If I'm encountering an artist for the first time, that's kind of when I seek a review to offer some context, to be like, oh, okay, this is where it's coming from, this is what I'm trying, this is at least the vantage point of the artist. It helps you understand a little bit more what the artist's experience is, what their perspective is, so that you're not just going, turning your nose up at whatever it is based on how it sounds sonically. Because there is lived experience in everything an artist is putting out, regardless of the commercial intention of it. And I think we do an artist's work a disservice if we're not approaching it with that kind of same type of intention. Like, you can be listening to a record very intently, focused on every word, every note, but you're not really fully listening to it unless you're also doing the dishes to it, unless you're also walking the dog to it, and kind of living with it the same way an artist also lives with the work. Because, like, you're writing stuff in the shower, you're writing stuff on the elliptical or whatever, or just as you're out and about at the grocery store, song ideas come to you. Like, that's how creativity happens. And that's how I kind of feel like we should engage with creative work.
So you get a lot of influence on what you're going to listen to through these reviews?
Sometimes. I mean, I just kind of, at this point, every record I listen to is an exercise in developing taste. So I kind of know in some instances, like, yeah, I'm going to like what this is. Like, if it's on the funkier side of things. Like, I've developed a set of aesthetic preferences that I like. And I'll gravitate towards stuff that's in that, but then also being conscious of that, listen to stuff that doesn't fit that at all. In an effort to expand the boundaries of whatever I'm listening to. Like Cannibal Corpse, talking about revisiting death metal. Like, I haven't really delved much into their discography. That tends to be a little bit more abrasive than stuff that I typically go for. Yeah, just a touch, right?
A touch abrasive.
Like, I like very groove-oriented music. It's a switch that happened, I don't know, probably 6-7 years ago in my listening habits. I went from enjoying primarily rock and alternative to really liking stuff that is groove-focused, not necessarily a 4/4 beat. And that's opened me up to a lot of sounds from around the world that I wasn't necessarily listening to previously. But I know in that quest to listen, I'll probably end up making my way back to more rock and straight ahead 4/4 beats and jammier stuff eventually, and maybe Cannibal Corpse.
Have these
don't
reviews
know.
ever steered you off of something when you were about to listen to it?
No, because typically I'm reading them as I'm listening.
Okay.
So like it's okay. I'm checking this out. What's the context here for this random record?
Oh, I think this is shit too.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that, right? But I never want someone's opinion on it to dictate like if I am or if I'm not gonna like whatever it is. I want to come to that of my own volition and not necessarily just because, Anthony Fantano of the Needle Drop doesn't like the record, or John Caramonica of the New York Times doesn't like the record,
Some name drop.
or something like that.
Friends of yours.
No, I wish. It's hilarious because I've been watching Anthony Fantano's reviews on the Needle Drop for a long time. I mean, he's been reviewing stuff on YouTube for over 10 years. And John Caramonica is actually a great example, too. Like, we don't enjoy a lot of the same stuff. But I know and trust that they're being honest in their perspective enough to, like, seek them out. And then know, like Anthony Fantano loves Death Grips, who are an experimental hip-hop outfit, who are incredibly important for the period of hip-hop. They fused a lot of industrial, electronic elements, very abrasive hip-hop. Not stuff that I listen to and love in most instances, but, like, I can appreciate where it's coming from. He loves that stuff. So I know anytime he recommends an experimental hip-hop record, I'm like, okay, that's probably the lens he's coming at. I know I might not necessarily like it, but I at least know that coming in, right?
Here's a question I never asked anybody. What about music will turn you off? When do you listen to something and say this is not quality? This is not good.
This is
This
not my
is
kind of
shit.
guy.
This isn't my cup of tea.
This is shit.
I think initially there's like an authenticity meter where if it sounds like it's being forced and it's not necessarily rooted in, it could be lived experience, past tradition, history, like that's kind of what'll turn me off a lot initially at first. But sometimes you have to check that because you might make assumptions based on the sound of something as to how, legitimate or not it might be. But that's probably the thing that I listen for first, and then it rests on whatever those aesthetic preferences are. Like, there are certain things like I love Americana and roots-rooted country, but a lot of the pop country stuff that is being produced now doesn't necessarily speak to me because a lot of it sounds like twang. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say that.
Excuse
It's
me.
like you are inserting twang into what is fundamentally just an attempt to be a pop song and resting on tropes and cliches.
You got a little slide in there. It's not pop anymore. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
but like, but
Didn't you hear that Pro Tools plug-in slide guitar?
right. But I mean, there's some
talked
great
about my
electronic
truck.
instruments. But that's what it like. I made love to my tractor, or something. Tennessee.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say Tennessee whiskey, but I love Chris Stapleton.
I do,
so
too.
I'm not. But he is a soul singer masquerading as a country artist.
Yes.
Like he could sing the phone book, and I would be satisfied with whatever. But he's a guy that's gone through a lot of different stages in his career and explored a lot of different stuff. And over the course of that, because his voice is rooted in tradition, earnestness, and it sounds like it comes from an authentic place. That stuff's a lot easier to sit through and try to understand than something that just feels like it's trying to ape something. Because after you listen to a lot of stuff, you can kind of tell, like, oh, you are just referencing this without necessarily listening to all of the tradition before. And that doesn't mean you have to. Like, you can't possibly listen to every folk artist before you if you're a folk artist, but at least grounding it in some sort of, like, context or place.
So you're not going to like my new hip hop album about my life in Compton.
Unless you've lived in Compton.
I have not.
No, his is Life in Men or Headlands.
There we go. And you can make a compelling hip-hop record from that perspective. But I also don't want to...
Sure can.
We get into a lot of fraught conversations, I feel like, about appropriation and who can meaningfully talk about certain things. Because I don't want to communicate that I don't think if you haven't lived a certain lifestyle or come from a certain tradition or experience that you can't make meaningful music in that genre. Because you absolutely can.
Yeah, you can observe it, and then it can still speak to you.
Absolutely. I mean, like, how many people never encountered reggae before The Clash started incorporating it into London Calling? Mm-hmm. Like, I am willing to bet that so many people encountered the sounds of reggae for the first time because they bought that record. There is a lot of innovation and a lot of beauty that comes from people that find music that speaks to them because it doesn't speak to their lived experience or musical tradition, and then try to innovate based on that. I mean, that's what music is. We're all taking our influences, transporting them through the prism of our lived experience, and then recording that. And I love that about music. That's why I'm constantly convinced that the best music ever being made is coming out now.
When it comes to success, either mainstream success or even semi-success,
Yeah.
It seems to me that when I was growing up, it seemed like image had a lot to do with what made you successful or
Yeah.
not. And is that I was born in '85. So kind of grew up with the music of like late
You're
'90s,
old.
early 2000s. Yeah. Like that was pretty important.
Sure.
Now, does it now with how much it's expanded your voice, how big it can be now? Is that more or less important or about the same as it used to be?
Image or perspective? What are you asking me about? Image?
Yeah, I'm
primarily?
talking about how. Well, I guess perspective, because I'm thinking about how an artist is portrayed as an
Yeah.
individual.
I think it's both. Because I think there are more micro communities that are supportive of certain sounds and certain perspectives than there ever have been, and it's easier to find those communities. But that conversely makes it harder for any one artist to achieve kind of the mainstream dominance that you would have previously seen from an artist. I mean, we certainly still have a lot of those acts, right? Drake released 2 records this year. They were huge. Taylor Swift released a record this year. It was huge. Like, there are still artists that kind of operate on this level. Like, Harry Styles is another great example from this past year. But you don't need to rely on becoming one of those artists to have a successful career anymore, because it's easier to reach people in a jam rock vein, in a death metal vein. Like, you can find communities of people that are supportive of that many times will sustain a career longer than trying to vie for continual mainstream relevance. SZA is a great example. Like, her last record before she just dropped SOS, she hadn't put out a record in 5 years. Yet,
Who'd you say?
SZA?
SZA. Oh, SCA, right?
Yeah, SCA. She's managed to sustain a career despite only dropping every 5 years through features on cultivating a fan base that, I mean, she's been number 1 on the Billboard charts for 5 subsequent weeks since that record's dropped. So I think it's both, which is, again, an unsatisfying answer. I know we're looking for quick fixes here.
One answer.
But it's both. It's both. And that's both, I think, encouraging and heartening. That helps. Yeah, I mean, image is also something that... Image is a particularly fraught topic, because inexorably tied in that right now is what types of stuff are boosted algorithmically as we've moved into an age of... We are no longer in an age of social media being the dominant platform. Like, yeah, people are still sharing photos of, like, their vacation or their, whatever they're eating for dinner on Instagram. But the way that we are now interacting with media on TikTok and Instagram, Reels specifically, is we're being recommended stuff now by an algorithm that is taking cues from what we're watching, what we're liking, what we're commenting on, what we're saving, how long we are spending viewing those videos, and then feeding us stuff based on that. And there are certain things that algorithm prioritizes, both aesthetically, visually, and not. Mm-hmm. So it does help that SZA is beautiful, no doubt.
Yeah, so
on that same token, though, well, going off there, something I hadn't thought of, there could be an advantage there for jam bands as far as
Sure.
time that you're spending on the platform. You want to finish this jam band song. It's not 3 minutes, it's 14 minutes that you're going to be on that platform.
Right.
How many ads are they going to spit out to you in the middle of the solo, which really irks me a bit on YouTube?
you better not do
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
is like Trey Anastasio on TikTok? Do we know?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, well, not
He's on
him
all kinds of
specifically,
stuff.
but I'm sure he's got a guy for that.
Oh yeah, he's definitely on all kinds of stuff. Fish definitely is.
Yeah.
I've never seen Fish, but I feel like that's an experience I need to have at some point.
You do.
Because I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong based on your experience, like jam bands are best experienced live. There's an energy
Yeah,
and a
definitely,
communal
definitely, yeah.
aspect to those shows that feeds into. I think we all, I think, fundamentally like music, not just because of what it says about us, but because in it we can find places we belong.
Yeah,
And-
you're never going to hear the song played the same way twice, not even close.
Right.
You know, not the same length, not sometimes not the same key,
Right.
and not the same show ever. You know, they've done 2,000 shows, they've done 2,000 completely different shows.
And that's beautiful, I think.
Yeah, so that's why you develop the people following the band. You know, you get it's not even seeing close to the same show twice. You get the same people up there.
Sure.
You know, you get a few of the same antics, but you'll hear things played differently. You'll hear sections dragged out longer. You'll hear some modulations that not even they planned. You know,
Gotcha.
a big thing is that a lot of the stuff that happens on stage isn't planned.
That's beautiful. And that's also, I mean, that's why all those Grateful Dead bootlegs are so sought after, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because it's never played the same way twice. And I adore that. I think that's great.
Yeah. Getting more and more of that. Getting a lot more festivals that are centered around that too.
Definitely. And I know venues love jam bands because people drink.
That's true.
That's the thing. Because so often, you know, conversations with venues center around draw and whether or not that draw will consume alcohol. Because a lot of venues make more money off the bar than they do the actual ticket sales anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I guess it's always
So
kind
you're
of been
saying
that
that
way.
jam bands are taking over between their ability
In
to
some
take up
sections,
time and alcohol.
Yeah.
Between time and alcohol, they're really going to take over the world here.
Definitely. There's definitely an economic advantage to those
Yeah.
bands from a booking
Yeah.
perspective. Excuse me.
Oh man, two of my most influential shows, or not inspiring is the right word, are playing on the same night later this month. I don't know who dropped the ball there, but Lotus and Humphreys McGee are both doing Cleveland shows on January 29th.
On the same night. Where are they? Where are they playing?
Lotus is the Beachland Ballroom,
Okay.
which I'm leaning towards because it's a more intimate venue, and Humphreys will be at the House of Blues.
Humphreys is playing Red Rocks later this summer, and I'm thinking about making a trip out there. So we could possibly
I've-
do a remote.
Always wanted to see a show at Red Rocks.
Yeah.
That's definitely a bucket list
Yeah, same
venue.
here.
Yeah, one of I think I was in my late teens. One of the biggest inspirations I had was the Incubus at Red Rocks DVD.
Ooh, I haven't seen that.
I'm
There we go.
actually wearing
Incubus.
the shirt again.
There we go.
Again, wearing an Incubus shirt. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the Humphreys light show on the rocks, like reflecting off of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, that's something that's we've talked about that's gotten bigger and
light
better recently. Is
See,
the
you see
light
my
shows.
new light show? Right back there.
Oh, hey, look
That's
at
a
that.
beautiful
Yeah,
rig.
I got a gig bar.
gig bar. We have lasers now.
Where's your smoke machine?
It's in the other room with another one of those and 4 more lasers. We have a dance party room in the other room.
There are a
'cause
few things more fun than smoke machines. I
Yeah.
feel like everyone should own a smoke machine.
My wife and I, when the pandemic kicked on and we were all bummed out, we spent a bunch of money on lasers and smoke machines, and we're like, we're just going to have
gonna have
dance
parties.
parties in the basement,
Heck yeah.
throw on a penguin costume from time to time.
Yeah.
And we just boogie
Whatever
down.
floats your boat.
Yeah. Should we try the 216?
What's that?
It's questions that I came up with.
Oh, that's
I
right.
messaged
Yeah,
you
yeah.
about it.
You did.
Let's do it.
Go
So
for it.
we were looking
A
at starting.
new feature.
Yeah, we need short form content.
In advance of this podcast,
Not everybody likes to
transitioning
watch
to
an hour and a
TikTok.
half of us rambling about Van Halen.
Admittedly, that's been 5 minutes of this, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little bit longer.
Cumulatively. We'll cap it at 10 minutes.
So we're looking at 2 Desert Island albums.
Okay.
What was the one?
Only 2?
This was your idea.
So it's 2 2 Desert Island albums. What was the one artist we should be checking out in the Cleveland area?
thought
that was Okay.
the 6.
I was going to do that.
Let's
but
get
that
the
seems
notes.
like it really puts pressure on people because they always forget on the
Well,
other side.
That's why it shouldn't be the 1, because if it's just 1,
Yeah,
never mind.
I
All right.
feel a little so should we make it 1 Desert Island album, 2 artists?
One Desert Island album is too hard.
Where
I already
are
have
you?
like 4. in my head.
We text each other too much to be going through this right now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all right.
That's what the search functions is
I
for.
guess I'm
Right.
gonna
Where
have
is
to
it?
add a cut. I'm not going to do it though.
So
In
2 Desert Island
conversation.
albums, one artist from the Cleveland area.
See,
you
I
should
had it
know.
as 6
We
that
got
we
2
should know.
Desert Island albums, 1 venue you'd love to
One
play,
venue you would, yeah.
and 6 local bands we should be listening to.
Okay. I don't know if the venue I'd love to play makes sense from my perspective. I mean, I guess I've started DJing out more this year, so I can answer it from that perspective. 2 Desert Island records.
They don't have to be from Island Records.
No, thank goodness. I'm trying to remember the last thing I'd listened to on Island Records. I mean, I have 4 that immediately popped into my head, so I'm just going to go for the first 2.
Go for 4. This is not a strict concept.
It's not, so we're doing 4.
It's the
1,
440.
We could do 4-4, but then I'm not recommending any Cleveland-based acts, and then I'd be sad about
This
that.
is East Side shit. Yeah.
There we go. So, Voodoo by D'Angelo comes up front of mind because it is such a beautiful amalgam of every black musical tradition
That's a
before
new
it.
word for me.
Amalgam?
Amalgam.
Kind of
Amalgam
like
in the middle.
amalgam in the middle.
Oh, okay. I know.
You're not the boss of me now.
But it fuses blues, soul, funk, hip hop, gospel in such an effortless way, and it adheres to kind of one of the rules that I've developed for what a great record is. It both has to be an engaging listen when you sit down and just listen to it exclusively, but it also has to be good background music. It has to be something that you can live with in a lot of different contexts. And I would hesitate to think of a setting in which that doesn't really work. You could work out to it, you could put it on at a party, you can just kind of sit in your headphones and listen to it. It is just an absolutely incredible record, and was released in 2000 during a period of soul innovation there were a bunch of people that rented out Electric Lady Land in 1999 and 2000. Erykah Badu's Mama's Gun was recorded in those same sessions. Common's Like Water for Chocolate was recorded during those same sessions, and D'Angelo's Voodoo. And that is the record that is... I mean, they've all stood the test of time to varying degrees, but I love that record. It's sonically perfect. Second one's probably Radiohead's In Rainbows, because that is still, I think, the most perfect distillation of everything that they represent in their career, genre-wise, texturally, from a songwriting perspective. It's just a perfect, succinct representation of why they're such a profoundly influential and excellent band. And then my favorite rock record of all time, as we're
The squeakiest
Squeaky
table.
Table.
We haven't moved it in a week. I don't know why it's squeaking so much.
But T-Rex's Electric Warrior is probably my favorite rock record of all time. He and Tony Visconti, Mark Bolan and Tony Visconti, deliberately set out to produce the trashiest, most disposable rock record they could, and as a result produced, I think, one of the most flawless representations of what the genre's appeal is, in kind of shooting for that disposability. The way that Mark Bolan uses strings as like a sonic foundation to like make guitar riffs heavier, the space that exists in that mix, the kind of the glammy trash that they're trying to evoke creates a dustiness and a shimmer to a lot of the tones on that record that I still feel haven't been equaled. And then the Avalanches Since I Left You, which is still probably the best. I always call it plunderphonic because it's a record exclusively comprised of samples. But in being exclusively comprised of samples, it produces a complete synthesis of something unlike anything you've ever heard. Like, you can pick out what individual... There are some things that are really recognizable, like one of the cuts samples the bass line from Madonna's Holiday. Like, that's undeniable. Like, you can pick that out. But it was a record that, for me, I mean, we've lived in a sample-based age for almost 30 years at this point.
Yeah.
That's the creation of something completely new based on other artists' original work, and that blew my mind.
So they're more taking the stems from songs. You're saying like it
What
was-
they did on that record, because it was recorded in like 1999, 2000, and I'm now hitting on there. That was a very pivotal period, I guess, in my life in terms of music releases. But a lot of it's records, so they're sampling. They're using vinyl and sampling it and creating something totally new. It's like a flawless DJ set from start to finish that really captures kind of the euphoria and bliss and beauty of groove-based and dance-based music. I mean, there's a track on that record called Tonight May Have to Last Me All My Life that I think we all can resonate with. We've all seen concerts where it's like, this is what being alive, like this is the best of what being alive is. And I can take this with me wherever I go. I can remember this experience when stuff isn't as good as this is. Like, I'm constantly chasing and trying to find that feeling in the music that I listen to in the concerts that I go to.
Well,
So that's
then
probably the...
go to that Humphreys McGee show.
Yeah, there we go.
It's cool to do that through samples too. Like Paul's Boutique does that for me. It's like, how did they come up with
Absolutely.
this with just existing?
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't have stems. They didn't have the benefit of digital. I mean, and Paul's Boutique absolutely blew my mind in a similar way. This is, excuse me, that on steroids because everything is a sample.
Yeah.
There is not an original sound to be found on that record. So you don't have any of the Beastie Boys contributing original vocal. Like, it is from start to finish solely based on other artists' original work to a point where you couldn't release it today, probably if you tried. But in doing so, like, I vacillate back and forth between thinking, is it harder to create something original, just write something from scratch, or is it harder to take thousands of sounds and records that people have made before you and then take that original work and create something original from it? Because I think there's an art form to that too, making stuff make sense together.
Yeah. And the physical work of doing that is by
Right.
far.
Well, and that
way
was always
harder.
the most impressive thing about Paul's Boutique was just like, oh my God, like they were sitting there splicing tape to create those beats.
Someone had created a YouTube video. It keeps getting pulled and then brought back of
course.
what is sampled from Paul's Boutique.
Yeah.
And they take the whole thing into the full length of the album into a video. And it's fantastic. You know, you've got Psycho coming in with a wah, 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 wah. Like, they clip all the movie scenes where, like, a little snippet of vocals comes in from that.
That's
And all the
awesome.
different beats. It's fantastic, but it keeps getting pulled from YouTube, so I can't really recommend it because it keeps going away.
But there are websites that have detailed what all those samples are, because
Yeah.
you've got everything from Curtis Mayfield to the Eagles to Hendrix to...
Who
I mean,
Sampled is a great
Who
source
Sampled
for
is
that. That's
fantastic.
an awesome website. If you haven't been on
Absolutely.
there, go on Who Sampled and check out the app, and you'll be on there forever.
an invaluable resource. Especially when you hear something, you're like, don't I know this song?
Yeah. Yes, I know it, but
Yeah, I
slowed
know it.
way down and yeah.
But not chopped and screwed.
Right.
Yeah. So we've got one venue I'd love to play. Beachland Ballroom's my favorite in town. I know I probably shouldn't take sides on what my favorite venues are, but that's the one that feels homiest. And they get to a point where you both have the kitsch and approachability that you associate with like any classic bar venue that you'd want to play, with a room that was, even if it wasn't initially designed to be a concert venue, any of those old Slavic music halls was at least designed with acoustics in mind. And I think that really matters when it comes to a venue. Like, you are going to see live music, and the sonic experience and representation of what you're seeing should be a part of that experience. And then 6 artists from Northeast Ohio that you should check out. Well, the first 2 are easy. Definitely Shayla Hope and the Sublets, who, even if I was not involved in a management capacity, I would say you absolutely have to listen to. I mean, there are very few people that are doing in pop what Shayla is doing. She comes from a very... There's just no one that sounds like her. She has a completely unique voice and perspective when it comes to her delivery of vocals that will absolutely stop you in your tracks. And it comes from a very profound and learned perspective. To date, nothing that she's released really sounds like anything else. She's a student of pretty much every era of pop before her, 80s to current, and there's something in it for everybody. Even if you don't think you're a pop music fan, you will like
You hear
something
those
that she's
years
produced.
in the music.
You do, absolutely. And that's intentional. because she has been influenced by so much and has the range to do so much because of what she's listened to and what she's lived through, that it can't help but come out in the music.
Yeah, just for like five tracks, I felt a tip of the cap to like 10 artists.
There we go. That's a beautiful thing, and that's how that record was written with that in mind. It's a love letter to the pop that raised her.
She's our producer today, by the way.
Yeah, she is.
Just looking off to the side of the camera.
Agreeing with everything you guys said. I'm like, yeah, I'm laughing over here quietly.
And
Ray's been replaced.
Ray has been replaced. And I mean, amongst all of the alt rock and emo revival that we've been living through, typified perhaps by the Machine Gun Kelly Tickets to My Downfall in 2018, the sublets come at it from a place of actually like rooted in that tradition. Those guys have been playing music since those sounds were in their infancy and actually drivers of mainstream taste and genre. So it's not a fad for them. This is something that they earnestly feel, and that comes across in the music without question. It's nice to hear stuff that isn't being done because it's like, hey, this is a bandwagon we should probably hop on. It's not the countless covers of the Sam Smith, Kim Petras song Unholy in the pop punk style that you hear on Reels or TikTok. Like, these guys earnestly feel it and come from that perspective, and that's a beautiful thing. Colin Miller, who we've talked about before, I think has just an incredible talent and knack for writing songs. He's got a great voice, and he has that rare ability that a lot of great musicians have had to surround themselves with incredibly talented people that are great at what they do. I mean, if you look throughout history, David Bowie was always good about it, Prince was always good about it. Like, the great musicians are great not just because of their own individual talent, but because they could identify that talent in others and bring them in to help bolster what they were doing. I mean, for fuck's sake, like, Stevie Ray Vaughan's on Let's Dance before Texas Flood dropped, like 6 months before. It's like, that's what I aspire to when I grow up. I want to be able to identify talent to that level.
He got invited on that tour and was like, no, that's not my gig. But
that's
thanks.
not my gig. Right. And that record's incredible because it's Bowie's sellout record.
Yeah.
It's like, how many artists are able to sell out, quote unquote? I don't really believe that exists anymore.
Right.
It's hard enough to get the money, just get the bread. Like, get in the Ford commercial, get in the, DirecTV commercial. Yeah. Like, it's hard enough to make a living, just do it. Like, that's why we're in it. Not just because of the love, but like, to be able to support yourself doing what you love, go for it.
It's one of my favorite things at the end of Touch Me from the Doors is Stronger Than Dirt, because the band was selling Light My Fire to Buick and they didn't talk to Jim about it, and he was pissed. He's like, all right, if we're just selling, I'm selling to Ajax. Stronger Than Dirt was their slogan. So at the end of the
We're
song
going full
Touch Me,
Smash Mouth.
you're stronger than dirt.
Wow. Yeah, I never, I get where that perspective comes from, but I think art can both have intrinsic value as a piece of art, and because of the world that we live in, be monetized without necessarily tarnishing the art. I feel like those two things aren't mutually exclusive. I don't think they have to be.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, is every free jazz record that's ever been released the purest form of essential art because that's not a commercially viable art form, quote unquote?
Do you ever
Is that what we should be listening to?
Do you ever get where something's been a little bit, I don't know if ruined is the right word, but tainted by it? I heard Vacation from the Go-Go's today. And all I can think of is Rum Ham from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're playing that while they're going to the Jersey Shore. And that's all I can think of with that song now.
I mean, but I don't know, because that speaks to a very specific memory. I mean, I assume you like It's Always Sunny from Philadelphia, and that brings you joy. So the fact that contributed meaningfully to that moment in that show, and that you can recall it, brings some joy and value to your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Despite it existing independent of the context of that record or the Go-Go's or anything music soundtracks moments in our lives like that, and its power is in that, I think. it's not just who can play the craziest guitar solo in multiple modes and multiple keys and multiple rhythms. Like, it has to communicate something that's meaningful to the recipient. It can't just be some masturbatory exercise all the time and like, look at how brilliant I am. I mean, there's value in that, but I think there's also value in communicating and reaching people, and that's kind of what I listen for. So I've done 3. Sorry.
Well, staying on that vein,
Yeah.
I gotta, before we get to the last 3 and give you time to think about the 3,
Sure.
narrow them down.
Got a couple.
I think what a lot of artists want to know are what are some of the best ways to make money these days with your music?
So over 50%, and this was pre-pandemic, of an artist's income at every level came from touring and merch. So finding ways to play in front of audiences that will help grow your fan base, and then also potentially sell merch through both in-person shows and digital marketing is incredibly helpful. Digital marketing is something I think pretty much every band that has commercial aspirations should be doing, and that doesn't need to be like, you don't need to be spending $10,000 every month on running ads on social media. That's not what it's about. Even $5 a day at some point to identify what an audience looks like, retarget them, and then eventually get to the point where you're collecting email addresses and selling merch that way. You can build a viable career that way. I know placements are always the hot topic, and there's no doubt that placements do represent a significant payday when you have the opportunity, but you can't rest your whole hat on those necessarily. So in terms of being
Because
prepared
those are
for
hard
those,
to get, right?
they're hard to get in terms of shopping for them. Like, you can always throw your hat in the ring, but most artists that I know that have secured significant placements, it happens like that.
Do you know
the
anything about the
opportunity just happens.
perspective of the people buying those placements or picking the song, picking the artist?
More so than ever, it's about mood and feel than it is about genre. And you can even see that in playlist culture. Like, a lot of the playlists that we listen to on Pandora, or even listen to CLE, like, people are listening to music to soundtrack their lives and not necessarily searching for, I mean, a lot of people are searching for specific genres that they know they like, but music is becoming part of what adds to the experience of whatever you're looking for.
So loyalty to a specific genre is more rare these days. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
absolutely. Yeah, I think genre is less relevant than it ever has been, at least in terms of like people's tastes. I think people are more omnivorous in their listening habits than they ever have been, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. And everybody that's not a psycho likes funk.
Yes, I would definitely say that. Yeah.
Although
mean-
a psychos still like funk.
Yeah. Everybody likes funk.
I think everyone
I'll
should
just go with everybody.
look.
likes
I'd be willing. There's a groove that's going to move everybody.
Yeah.
I think there's some song that's going to get everybody out of their seat and dancing and having a good time, and that's a beautiful thing.
Cool. 3 more artists from.
So 3 more artists.
Make it a 2-on-3.
Hello 3D, who are a cumbia-based outfit out of Cleveland, are just making some super compelling music. They describe it as hot weather music. It's rooted in the kind of the Colombian psychedelic tradition, very groovy, instrumental based.
3D.
Hello 3D.
Exclamation mark.
Yes.
You-
Hello exclamation point 3D.
Oh, that's right. It's right. It's
Hello!
It's
in
inserted
there.
in the middle. There we go. But they're absolutely terrific, and there are very few groups, at least that I've encountered, because certainly my listening and concert-going experience is not definitive in any way. There are very few groups that are doing what they're doing.
You only listened to a couple albums last year.
Yeah, only a couple.
We missed a conversation with them. We had to cancel a day once, and they were
Worth getting back,
We
because Jake and Joe, who are at least my good friends in that group, are just absolute
Yeah, we
musical
missed
savants.
them, and we missed Spirited the Bear that day. We have rescheduled.
Youngstown? Is
Yeah.
that those guys? Okay, cool. They've
A
been
lot of great-
experiencing.
a lot of great artists out of Youngstown.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, absolutely. I was just turned on to, and this, I don't know if I've only heard one song. They only have one single out, so I can't say this definitively, but Sedona. They just released a track called Yacht Club, Y-A-T. It's on the Eisenberg Review this week. There we go, little self-promo there. Very kind of like Mac DeMarco bedroom pop approach, very jangly, echoey guitars.
Cool.
Very cool. I'm not including them as one of my.
Yeah, Sedona.
You got dissed.
My groups. No, it's just I can't speak from any sort of authoritative way. Like I've only listened to, they only have one song out, and I've only heard it a couple of
217
times.
I'll
Yeah,
remember.
217.
I'll remember. That's the prettiest city I've ever been to.
Youngstown?
Sedona.
Oh, Sedona. There we go. Because I was gonna be like, no shade on Youngstown,
gotta
but I'm
travel,
like
man.
Youngstown. Gotta think about others. I mean, Ray Flanagan, who we've talked at nauseum, I think typifies the kind of approach that we've been talking about. He's a guy that really reveres history and tradition and embeds that in a lot of his approach to music. And he's just a hell of a lot of fun and not afraid to speak his mind musically or otherwise. And I think more artists could learn from that approach. I'm trying to think of one more and trying to not have it be, because there are obvious choices like Mourning a Black Star, who are just absolutely kind of the same way in which we were talking about voodoo being an amazing amalgam of the black musical experience. Mourning a Black Star are very much that way in terms of the sounds that they're able to draw on, be it hip-hop or soul or funk music, and transmogrifying that into something that is a unique experience that has a very contemporary viewpoint. So I guess that'll be my sixth. Those are the ones that
Mourning a
come to
Black
mind.
Star,
Yeah.
Good
Great
choice.
success.
Yeah.
Oh damn! Now, of course, now I'm coming up with other people.
Talk at Hello 3D and Morning of Black Star for our conversation, please.
Oh yes,
Very much so.
absolutely. Because I would also say, I mean, there's so many. Nate Saggio, who is a co-write of Shayla's, wrote "Falling" on Damn Feelings, and is going to be working on some great material with her coming up this February. I don't know when this is going to air, but
Hopefully this Sunday.
hopefully this Sunday. Okay,
Hopefully
perfect.
this Sunday.
We'll see how the Wi-Fi is in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It all comes up to that.
But he is writing a lot of very, very interesting, forward-thinking pop in the James Blake vein. So comes at it from more of an electronic angle, but has a terrific voice. He's a great producer. The sky's the limit for that guy. Once, whatever he decides to focus on. Because he was the touring keyboardist in Welshly Arms for a while. He's been in a lot of different groups. Really good songwriter and producer. There's a rock act. Well, I'm breaking the rule with Sidonia, but there's a new group, Locanti, who's really piqued my interest as of late. They're a rock group that are descendants of the original, founder of the Agora back in the 60s. I think that Locanti is the last name of 3 of the members. They're writing some really interesting alternative rock that has definitely piqued my interest. It's not just the 4 chords and the truth approach. Not that there's anything wrong with that approach, but at least the one tune that they've released, which the name escapes me, thanks to the whiskey and the beer
that happens.
and lack of dinner, but very
that
interestingly
we'll get
arranged.
to, yeah. Cool. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can be the 2-1-20 if you got
2-1-20. There we go. Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of talent here, and it's easier to reach audiences than it's ever been, but making it in Cleveland making it in Cleveland assures that you have what it takes to make it anywhere, but it doesn't guarantee that at all. But you could say that about pretty much any city that isn't London or LA or New York. Like most cities, if you make it big in that city, you have to find a broader audience.
That's where
To really
we've
make it.
lost a lot of our diamonds.
Sure.
They realize their worth and see ya.
Oh
Cool. Real quick, check out Enlightenment Event Lighting, basementtrader.com, Jason Meyer's radio show, NEO Rocks on WJCU, and his rootsofamericanmusic.org nonprofit, jonesdronecle.com for all your drone needs, and listencle.com for your Cleveland artist-based mood list and to get yourself through on their database.
yeah. You got that pretty well.
You got it down. Gentlemen, thanks so much for having me. This has been a pleasure.
This
We've
has
got
been a pleasure.
Yeah, it has been, absolutely. We got one closing question we ask all our guests is to recommend either like a movie, a TV show, or a YouTube channel that we should be checking out.
You can give us a couple since it's just you. We have up to 5 people on the other side of this table, so you can give us
It
a
gets a
couple.
little packed over there.
You get 2 questions an episode those days.
I'm tempted to go with a lot of favorites, which is easy. YouTube channel, what I've really been enjoying is a vinyl DJ set channel called My Analog Journal, based in the UK. They invite different DJs in once a week on Sundays to just spin a 30 to 45-minute set of stuff from their own collection as it adheres to a genre. So whether or not it's tropical sounds, whether or not it's Brazilian groove, whether or not it's,
What's the name of
90s
that
R&B.
again?
My Analog Journal.
All right, I'm adding that in.
It's a really beautiful addition to kind of my listening repertoire. I find a tremendous amount of good stuff in those DJ sets. And it's not monetized because they're playing a bunch of copyright material. So Patreon's something we didn't touch on, but creating, avenue streams like that.
Lava Brothers have just
Help.
launched a Patreon channel. Speaking of which, I shared it on our Facebook page, but
Cool.
they should be coming out with some content for their Patreon subscribers, exclusive stuff.
You definitely have to be mindful of offering additive value-oriented stuff on Patreon, but I think we're shifting more towards a creator economy where that type of stuff is going to be incredibly important in terms of cultivating and then offering something to a fan base. Fans like to feel like they've discovered something new for the first time, feel like they're early adopters, and then kind of championing it, and that's a very reciprocal relationship, I think.
Yeah.
So we've got one YouTube channel there. I've already mentioned a couple others, and I don't want to. Needle Drop doesn't need the plug, nor do I agree with him necessarily all the time. So
All right.
I think that's good. That'll be the YouTube channel. Cool.
Sweet.
Guys, thanks so
I'll be
much.
checking it out.
I
Absolutely.
did
Thank
check
you.
out
yeah.
Ray Flanagan's movie recommendation, Barbarian.
Oh, if you want to talk horror movies, ask Shayla. She is
We will be asking.
most if not all of the good film that I have seen or learned about is from her. I mean, my media consumption is very heavily skewed towards music. I don't know much about movies or TV outside the classics. So it's okay. You pick and choose. You can't be an expert in everything.
That's right.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you
Teddy
so much.
Eisenberg.
Thanks, guys.
Teddy Eisenberg Review 91 and 91.9.
91.1.
91.1.
You got it?
FM. Case Western. Cool. For Cuyahoga Sound Podcast, I'm Evan Stuff.
I'm Chuck Schilling.
Peace.